And today's session, a little bit different. It's an audio-only session with Susanna Halonen. Susanna Halonen is a happiness expert and an expert also in positive psychology. And her session today is basically on how to unlock passion to be fulfilled at work. And essentially, she'll talk a lot. Again, you're going to need a pen and paper at the ready because she's going to talk about lots of things. How she transformed her pessimistic attitude to a more optimistic one. Signs that you're not happy at work and how to overcome the fear of changing and the potential consequences of being too comfortable. And she also talks about the steps that she took to change her career. And these are steps that you too can apply if you're looking to change yourself. So let's get on with the interview. The very first question I asked Susanna was just to tell us a little bit about what she does. Enjoy.
I became a happyologist basically through a series of little steps. I used to be in the corporate world originally, and it was when I was at the corporate world and I realized that I wasn't fulfilled that I discovered basically positive psychology, which is the science of happiness and human performance, through this amazing book called The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor. And it was a total eye-opener and life-changer for me. And as I read that book, I realized, oh my God, this is exactly the field I need to be in. This is exactly what I need to be doing. And it was after that book that I started to basically take little steps to explore the field more. And it was also a coaching session, actually, that I had from a careers coach that helped me realize that I could actually change my career path as well, because I think, coming from a family of, I have 3 brothers and a father, and they're all like in the corporate world and, management consulting, financial services. So very kind of different path than what I'm taking now. So I'd always assumed that the corporate path was just the one to follow. But yeah, my coach really helped me realize that, wow, no, actually there are other things that I can do. And if that's what I want to do, that's okay. So after that coaching session, it was like a series of steps that I took to basically test the waters a bit, explore positive psychology a little bit deeper, and eventually then I ended up leaving the corporate world, doing a full-on coaching accreditation and a master's in positive psychology, and then set up Happyologist as a business. And now that's what I do basically full-time.
I can really resonate with a lot of what you've just said there, because my career path was very much defined, I suppose, or at least set out by my parents, and I wanted to follow them as my example. And it's only through exploration. It sounds like you did this as well. It's through exploration that I discovered other things. So I think that's a good point in terms of taking a career path that suits you as opposed to following one that has been defined or set out for you. So that's a really good point. What was it about for you, the corporate world? Because I believe you worked for Sony, and it looks like you had a really good career with them. What was it about your corporate life that perhaps made you question what you were doing and take a different route?
It was quite interesting because Sony was also my first job after university, so I was quite excited about it. I went into their graduate scheme, so I got a lot of training and development, which was amazing, and I still really appreciate that. But I think as I stayed there longer and longer, I started to kind of see myself change a little bit and I stopped, challenging situations. I started to accept status quo, which is kind of what, I don't know, sometimes tends to happen in the corporate world. And I realized that's not really me. I have kind of more ambition and drive in that. I'm really motivated to change things and to make things better. So I think that was definitely one thing that I realized was a little bit of a mismatch, that it was just too difficult to create change in the corporate world. And also, I think just the environment in itself wasn't right for me. I love freedom and independence. And I'm sure maybe with the right teams and the right managers, that's possible. But it is quite rare to come across these days. And I realized, well, actually, if I'm going to work my bum off, and I'm really going to, want to do things that are meaningful to me, I should really set up something on my own and do something that I feel like I have to do rather than something that I just think I should do. And I think there was also a little bit of a values mismatch in terms of the company culture internally and my values personally as well. And in the end, I just realized it wasn't, the industry wasn't right for me, the company wasn't right for me, and I realized, well, actually, I need to, think about what's most meaningful to me, how I want to spend my time, and that's when I decided to basically make the leap and make the change.
Excellent. And again, I think from my experiences with working with people who are looking to change careers, there's a certain element of fear.
Yes.
And I don't know if you, I suppose, came up against this yourself, but even if you didn't, what would you advise people who, for example, are in a comfortable corporate setting but not happy with it, and reach that point where they're thinking to themselves, I need a change, but they just can't, overcome that boundary, that fear in the back of their mind to make the change?
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that. I was so scared to make that leap and to create that change. Sure. And like you said, that's the thing. You get so comfortable on that path, and then, you getting your promotions and then developing yourself within the company, and you just get so used to that environment, getting that monthly paycheck. So I was definitely terrified of kind of losing that false sense of security. And there is a reason I call it a false sense of security as well, because I think there are just companies now, they're very volatile. They have to be very quick to adapt to markets, or they're going to be, again, making redundancies, reorganizations, things like that. So it's not really as secure as people think it is. But the way I basically fought that fear to really overcome it and just get on with it was really by taking tiny little steps. So my first step was really that coaching session that gave me that epiphany that I could do something else.
Sure.
And after that, I basically just took one step further. Like, I set up Happyologist as a blog initially, so it didn't have anything to do with making money or creating it into a business. It was just for me to write about positive psychology and happiness and how to de-stress and things like that. And then I was like, okay, I'm really enjoying writing about it. Okay, so I'm going to explore it a bit more. Then I did an intro to positive psychology, a weekend course, and then, loved it. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to, apply for the master's. And equally, all of those things were happening as well with the coaching side, because the coaching experience I had was so powerful. I wanted to help create that kind of, epiphanies for people as well. And that's what inspired me to become a coach. So then I did an introduction to coaching, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is definitely right for me. And then I did a full-on accreditation. So it was I took the tiniest little steps I could take in order to kind of get affirmation that, yes, this is the right path for me. And yes, I'm definitely confident that this is what I should go for. And I was taking all those steps whilst I was still, working in the corporate world. So I was doing it, on weekends or, late night evenings and all these things. And it's amazing how much you can achieve just by saying, maybe 1 or 2 Saturdays a month, you're going to basically just spend a day exploring this new field or job or industry or whatever that you're thinking about switching to. And it was just by taking those little steps that I got the reassurance that I needed. Yes, this is the path to take. And then eventually, because I'd taken so many steps, each step kind of made me feel more confident and more sure. So then every step I could after each step I could take an even bigger step. So I think really fear is fought with action. So
Definitely.
The more you can do something in order to test the waters, the better. I think that is really the key to creating change.
I think that's a brilliant example of how to move yourself forward, and I think that you really enjoyed the journey from where you were to where you are. I suppose what a lot of people tend to do is they set out their eventual goal, but they don't necessarily enjoy the steps that they take to get to that eventual goal. So that story that you just told in itself is a really good example of enjoying the journey. So thank you for that. That's really great. It sounds like as well, well, I actually read somewhere that you're a pessimist, or you were a pessimist, and you turned yourself somehow into an optimist. How did that all come about? How did you work through that?
Yeah, well, I guess maybe that's one of the reasons that kind of drove me into positive psychology as well, like understanding how to kind of see the glass as half full rather than half empty. And because I've always just been quite critical and quite negative and pessimistic overall. And it was basically by actually immersing myself in that field of positive psychology that by understanding what actually makes us happy and fulfilled, what makes us productive, that I started to completely shift my mindset and my thinking into a more positive one, because I realized, well, negativity is just kind of wasted energy, and
Sure.
it actually it cuts everything from our health to creativity to productivity. Like, it's just no good for us. So it was almost like I had to hear all the scientific evidence to realize, okay, optimism is what's good for you. And then basically everything that I learned in positive psychology around all these tools and interventions that I now use on my clients, I've basically done on myself to start off with. Because one, I wanted to make that shift in my mind to become an optimist so I could really start feeling more empowered, inspired, more driven, go after the things I want to. And two, because I wanted to test those things and make sure they worked before I started using them on clients as well. So it was definitely, again, a step-by-step process. And I mean, it's a journey that I've absolutely loved. And for sure, I still have days that I might feel a bit pessimistic, and it's a good reminder of kind of how far I've come. And now I also have those tools when I am feeling a bit, negative, that I'm like, okay, so this is the question I can ask myself now, or this is the exercise I can do now to get back into that positive place where I want to be.
So there actually are exercises then that you do that allow you to, get rid of all that negative energy and turn it into something positive.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I guess then, as a happiness coach, this is something that probably is not something that you come across every day. It's certainly the first time I'd heard about it when I started to read your blog and your book. What does a happiness coach do, and why do you think it's important?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I do get that a lot, because people are like, well, happiness coach, what do you mean? But basically it is life coaching with an essential focus on happiness. So all the different types of challenges I help my clients with are all with that mindset in order to get them into a place where they are more positive so that they can start creating change in their life that is right for them. So I basically work with all kinds of different challenges, from people who are feeling stuck in their careers and they're not quite sure why or what to do. And for some people, I coach them through that situation, and then they realize that actually it's because they feel like they're not being challenged or they're not growing enough. So then they take that to their manager, and then I prepare them for that conversation. Or other times, people realize, well, this is actually not the company for me. This is not the type of career I want. And then some people take the complete leap of, okay, I actually want to become a freelancer or an entrepreneur. So I coach them through that process as well, so that they have all the confidence in themselves and in their abilities to basically take those leaps. And I really guide them through that whole change process. And then I do work with a lot of kind of people who are looking for behavior change and looking for different, basically, habits in their life. So people who feel like they've gotten stuck in a little bit of a rut when it comes to not being able to, exercise is an easy one, or eat healthily, or they're too stressed and they're unable to sleep. So then I completely, again, break it down for them, and we go, 10 steps back to figure out, okay, how did we actually get to this place, and how do we get to now a more positive place, so that, you get your health, your physical and mental health back, so that you can start, again, to have that energy. Because in a way, positivity also needs energy, so you need that energy there. So that needs to be created with the right habits and the right routine as well. So those are kind of the few things that I work with my clients on.
No, it sounds like there's a full range of the lifestyle to the actual careers there that you cater to. But is there any typical client? Is there anybody who you would say, I have more of this type of client than another? Is that something that you can identify?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely getting more and more people who want to take that leap from the corporate world to becoming an entrepreneur or a freelancer. And with that, so with them, I help a lot with their confidence, making sure that they're clear on their strengths and their values, making sure that they're prepared as much as they can be to deal with entrepreneurship. And because it is quite a tricky one to get into as well, because unless you're in it, you don't really know what it involves. And it does it basically requires a lot of resilience as well. So
Sure.
I do basically work a lot with getting them more resilient. So when they decide to make that leap, then they are kind of prepared for all the hard work that's going to go into it. But also they make a leap that's right for them, so that they are really fulfilled by that new entrepreneurship route, that they really believe in it, that it's aligned with their values and their beliefs, because that is, of course, one of the key ingredients as well.
Definitely. And I'm intrigued. How do you get somebody to have that resilience? How do you do that?
Yeah, again, it's basically depending on the client. I use different types of tools.
Sure.
I mean, because resilience, again, is very tied to a positive mindset.
Yes.
So the first exercise that it's kind of a homework that I give to pretty much 99% of my clients is this gratitude exercise. And basically, it's very simple, but it's very powerful, and it's incredible how much it changes. I mean, there's research that's shown that it actually changes, how your brain is formed and your neural pathways as well. So it's very, very powerful. And the exercise basically is that for 21 days in a row, you should finish every day by writing 3 things that you were grateful for in that day. So it needs to be really specific to that day, because that way, then every day you're forcing yourself essentially to think about, okay, so what did I appreciate today? Okay, maybe the sun was really nice and bright today and it warmed my skin nicely, or maybe I got a really great hug from my partner or from my kid when I was feeling a bit low, or maybe you had, a big win, you got a new client or something like that, or a pitch went really well. So it always needs to be something really specific to that day. And the idea is, as you do it for 21 days, 21 days is approximately how long it takes to basically build a habit. So that's why basically I always tell them to do it for 21 days in a row. And as you kind of do it again and again, you start to look for things to be grateful for around you. So already then you start to basically shift your mind from basically, what's wrong and what's lacking, to, okay, let me look at what's right. Because that's when you also start to then spot more opportunities around you as well. So that's where I think really gratitude is one of the kind of foundations to basically positivity and resilience. And that's why that's like the number one tool, the first tool that I basically use with all of my clients.
I see. Okay. And the other thing is, you mentioned, typical clients, for example, those that are in the corporate world and looking to move, from that to, say, for example, entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
But there's often people, I guess, who they go through their career and they, as you said, you have good days, you have bad days.
Yeah.
But how can you recognize, or are there symptoms that you can actually recognize in yourself that tell you it's time to change, or it's time to move, or time to do something different?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of those symptoms are very, individual to people. But definitely if you are kind of feeling exhausted all the time, because that is probably a sign that you're draining all your energy basically doing something that you actually don't even believe in. So you're exhausted, but you're not fulfilled. So whereas, for example, as an entrepreneur, you might have days that you're exhausted at the end of the day, but you're fulfilled. So it's that's one of the key kind of energy shifts to think about if you are feeling drained and exhausted, but you don't feel like fulfilled or happy. The second symptom is also if you start to just really feel basically miserable, frustrated, angry kind of all the time. So you, and because that's the thing, if things start to go wrong at work and you start to kind of get to this place where you're just in status quo and just don't really care much about it, that tends to go a little bit into other areas of your life because, of course, as one person, we are one being. So when one thing happens in one part of our life, it affects the rest of our life. So if you're maybe finding yourself more frustrated at home as well, or, you know, more restless, or you feel like, you know, nothing's going right and everything, you know, the world's against you and things like that, those are also signs that, okay, you know, it's time for you to take a step back and think about, okay, so what is it that's actually not right? You know, try and compartmentalize and think about, okay, so there's something that's not right with my job. And then think about, okay, so what is it that's not right with my job? And then, I mean, a lot of the time I tell people to go back to basics about their positions basically and just say, okay, so write down a list of the pros and write down a list of the cons. And then look at those two lists. And it's interesting because a lot of the time when I take people through this in a coaching session, they actually start to look at all the pros of the job and they're like, yeah, those are really good, but, you know, they're not enough for me. And I'm like, well, then that's a sign that if even the pros aren't enough for you in terms of them not making you feel enough fulfilled or enough challenged or, you know, being tied enough to your values, then that is a key sign that it is time to move on. Because even like when you go into entrepreneurship, or maybe another position, there's always going to be some things maybe about your job that you don't like. I mean, I admit I'm not a fan of, you know, all my accounting and bookkeeping. So luckily I have an accountant to do all that. So that's okay. You know, it's okay to have, you know, things you don't like about your job, but you need to like most of it and make sure that you are getting the fulfillment out of it. But even if you write that list and you're looking at the good things about your job and you're thinking, well, actually, I'm forcing these as good things. Actually, they don't really mean much to me. That's when, you know, you've got alarm bells going off and you need to start thinking about making a shift.
Sure. And for you, I mean, I guess by now you've dealt with lots of people who've come to you and not felt so happy, and you've guided them from being in a place where it wasn't a positive experience for them to somewhere where they're feeling much more fulfilled, much happier. Is there a story that you could share with us briefly of somebody who you've taken through that process?
Yes, definitely. Yes, there is one of my clients. He used to be in the financial industry in London. And she basically just felt, you know, she actually even had like another path before that, because she's not from the UK, and she still felt like stuck and unfulfilled. And she's like, well, I've already made like, you know, one career shift, and I'm still not understanding what I should be doing. You know, I'm bored out of my mind. I just don't feel challenged, and I'm not in the right environment. And she was interesting as well to work with, because in the beginning when I was getting her to basically identify her strengths and her values and, you know, all the things that were basically she was naturally good at and the things that were important to her, she was like, well, no, she tried to deny the fact that she had all these resources and all these abilities. So like that first step was actually making her to really believe in herself, because I think that's one of the biggest mistakes or dangers that happen, that when we get comfortable and we stop being challenged and stuff, then we also start to believe that actually I can't do this or I can't do anything else. And, you know, and then that's kind of then the first thing you need to do is build that confidence back up. And then you can start to think about, okay, now we've got, you know, your mindset in order. You know, you've got all these amazing capabilities, and, you know, you are beautifully unique exactly as you are. So what do you basically want to do now to contribute to the world? And so we worked basically through a series of sessions with her, and then in the end, she actually went to one of these taster coaching sessions, like a train to become a coach. Yeah. And because I said maybe this is, through the sessions we discovered that was something that she might be really interested in, because she really loved working with people. And when she went to this one-day taster, and she called me from there, and she's like, Susanna, oh my God, I've never been so sure of anything in my life. This is exactly the path I need to be on. And it was just amazing that we'd gotten her to that place, that she'd basically gotten that confidence in herself that, okay, I can do this. Oh yeah, I definitely want to do this. And then following on from that day, she basically, I helped her get prepared to get like accredited as a coach, and now she's actually setting up her own business as well as a coach. Yeah, which is really amazing.
No, that is an amazing journey from working in a place that you're not interested in really to really finding your unlocking your passion and being certain, having that certainty about what you're doing. I suppose there's nothing more fulfilling than that. I can say that myself as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Susanna, you've written a book as well, and I haven't read all of it yet, but I'm intrigued by what I've read so far. And I think what attracted me to it was the title.
Yeah.
Because you always hear people talking about, you've got to find your passion, you've got to find your passion. You do this, that, and the other to find your passion, but your take on it seems slightly different. So, and the title of your book, Screw Finding Your Passion, It's Within You, Let's Unlock It. Can you tell me the idea behind that?
Yes, no, absolutely. So that book is basically based on research that I did around passion in positive psychology. And as I was basically interviewing and doing this research and exploring what actually passion is and how it comes about, what I discovered was that in order to live a happy, fulfilling life, it's not about chasing what you love, but finding love in what you do. So kind of this idea of find and follow your one passion and then just obsessively pursue it for the rest of your life is actually quite misleading, because people who sometimes then do that, they actually get a little bit obsessive about it, and then it can actually have a more negative effect on their life, and it starts to actually drain them and take away from their life rather than, fulfill them. So as I did my research and came up with this finding, there were basically these 5 things that seem to help people to live passionate lives without tying them to just one thing. And it was really interesting. Because, personally, I've gone through my passion journeys as well, trying to follow my love for horses, and then realizing actually doing it full time killed my love for it. So I was just like, I was blown away by, the responses that I got when I did this research, and in the end, the whole, findings from all the interviews, that actually passion is something that sits within us, and we can choose to bring it out whenever we want, and we don't need to tie it to just obsessively one thing. And of course, like through my book, I talk about the different steps you can take to start unlocking that passion, because of course there are things that you can do to help that passion come out as well, if you feel like, the flame has, died a bit, so to say.
Sure. And what I'm going to do actually, because I'm going to put a link at the bottom of this post, wherever it may appear, so that people can link to your book and see it and have a look for themselves. I think it's something that, everybody should read if you're looking to change your career, or, just looking basically to unlock your passion. Then it's a highly recommended read, I'd say. And just going on that, actually, there's something else that really intrigued me in the book as well. And it's something that I'm hearing more and more where your people's careers are concerned, and that is the idea of authenticity and its importance. And I think in the book you make a link between authenticity and passion. Can you just tell me a bit more about that?
Yes, absolutely. That is really like the foundation to living a passionate and fulfilling life, is to make sure that you are being authentic, because I think we forget that we are subject to a lot of pressures around us. It could be subconsciously, it could be consciously, it could be, from our parents, our family, our upbringing, society, our friends, whoever it is that we're surrounded by, and even the media. There's so many things kind of shouting at us, telling us to be like this or be like that or do this or do that. And in the end, we kind of just need to take a moment to pause. And I like to say, put your hand on your heart and say, this is what's important. Because in the end, you need to connect to your authentic self, to your own values and beliefs, if you want to basically make a path that's really aligned with who you are. And it is incredible because it can be really daunting and scary for people to actually follow their own paths and really be truly authentic, because maybe they've just even forgotten who they are and kind of lost touch with, their inner being. So sometimes, it takes some time to really reconnect again. And this is where I love things like meditation, mindfulness, yoga, all of those things really connect you to your inner being and your kind of your intuition, bring more self-awareness and all of those things. And I think all of that basically helps you to become more authentic. So you realize you don't have to be anybody else but you. And I love this quote by Oscar Wilde, and it's in my book as well. And he says, "Be yourself, everyone else is already taken." Because it's so true.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you are just so unique exactly the way you are, and you are like perfectly imperfect the way you are, and you are absolutely enough the way you are. And I think the more people learn to embrace that, that's when they start to get connecting to their authentic self, and that's when they can start to make those shifts and changes in their life to make sure that they are living a life that's really true to them.
No, excellent words there, and I second that. I think it's one of those things I think, and I come across, I guess, a lot of people who are almost putting on a front or putting on a fake a facade, I suppose, of who they really are and not really then applying themselves and wondering why and then feeling unhappy. And I think authenticity or lack of authenticity is something that is certainly something that people should look at. And I think, as I said before, reading your book will certainly open up the eyes of many people. So I'd recommend it. But I'm just intrigued to know as well, because as I said, I've never heard of a happyologist before, and I'm intrigued to know what the future holds for you, Susanna. What plans do you have for the future, and how are things going with the book and everything?
Yeah, well, I think I just want to kind of keep spreading the word and keep doing the work I do, keep helping more people through my coaching and my workshops and my writing. There are definitely more books in the future. I've just got too many ideas. I need to pick one, I think. And I'm also working on an online course as well, because I think that will help kind of make the stuff I talk about more accessible to people as well, if they can't come to my live events, or if they want more than just the book. So, yeah. Sure.
And if people should want to buy your book or go to your live events and read more about you, where should they go? Where's your website?
Yes, my website is happyologist.co.uk. So you can there sign up to a free happiness newsletter that basically comes out every 2 weeks with all kinds of tips around dealing with stress, overwhelm, and, getting clear about your authenticity and becoming basically happier overall. My book is available on Amazon. So if you search for Screw Finding Your Passion, you'll be the only one there. So.
Excellent.
And my online courses, they will be coming up on my website as well in the new year.
Excellent. And then just as a final bit of insight from you, or a final tip, what would be your biggest tip for somebody who is really looking to really unlock their passion? What's your biggest possible tip?
I mean, I would really go back to this gratitude exercise, because I think that is the first thing when it comes to you basically becoming more positive. And it's also going to make you more self-aware about what you actually appreciate the most. So I would then take add another level to it. So after those 21 days, when you've got, a list of 3 things you're grateful for every day, look at those different lists. So also save them. I like to have a little gratitude notebook, basically. So, go a bit old school here and use pen and paper. And then flick through them and see, okay, what are the things that actually make me feel most appreciative? What are the things that I do feel most grateful for? Because then you can probably start identifying a pattern and think about, okay, so these are the things that really light me up. These are the things that really help me to feel fulfilled. And those are kind of your first initial kind of light bulbs when it comes to thinking about your authentic self and what is it that helps you to feel good. Because often the things that we appreciate the most in life are also very tied to basically our values and our true self.
Sure. Excellent. Well, Susanna, thanks so much. Anybody who, as Susanna said, wants to have a look at the website and the book, go across to happyologist.co.uk. And Susanna, thank you so much for your time, and look forward to hearing about your course and your new books in the future.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was great chatting to you.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed that session with Susanna Halonen. And now it's really time for you to take action on what you've learned. These sessions are not just about listening and letting it go over your head. It's also about taking action on some of the things that you've learned. Because identifying your passion is a crucial part of your self-assessment process. So go ahead and look at your CV, look at your resume, review your CV and resume to understand the times and the roles and the experiences that you felt at your very best. That's one way you can do it. Another way you can do it is by talking to other people, talking to other professionals, figuring out what they do and understanding if any of what they do resonates with what you like to do. Think about causes, think about problems that you'd like to solve, and figure those things out and see if any, again, of those things resonate with you. That's another way in which you can really begin to exercise unlocking your passions, unlocking your interests. So it's all about taking action. So, and then next we've got in the next session tomorrow, this session is available for the next 24 hours, but the next session coming up tomorrow is with another careers expert, Scott Barlow of Happen to Your Career. He focuses on strength identification. And the reason this is so important for you is that 87% of people throughout the world are not engaged at work. Hopefully you're not one of them, but by listening to Scott's session, you'll be able to understand how you can begin to identify your strengths so that instead of working on roles or working using skills that don't necessarily float your boat, you can begin to work towards things that really resonate with you, things that really reflect your strengths, and that way you can be happy in life and in work. So listen to Susanna's session again, and look out tomorrow for Scott Anthony Barlow's session of Happen to Your Career.